subscribe to that channel. Tony also knows boxing knows well. My channel is doing very good. I'm getting close to 1,000 subscribers, and I want to thank everybody that tuned in and subscribed and wasn't afraid to subscribe and took a chance and to join my channel and become part of the family and actually get real, unadulterated truth and unbiased content that'll entertain you but also educate you on what's really going on. But yeah, Tony also knows boxing. I have a lot of news to share. We have a lot of things going on this weekend. We have also this week we're going to have a major fight, in my opinion, with Universal Promotions. It's going to have Alishik Canelo fighting on the undercard of Brian Myers Obi. There's two rappers that don't like each other. It's a controversial beef that those two rappers have with each other, and they're using that as a scapegoat to promote the boxers underneath, which I'm kind of like 50-50 on that, but I feel like that's how they bring traction to the main, they give traction to the local fighters on the undercard, but at the same time they're focusing more on the popularity of the two rappers that don't get along, who are fighting for the first time in the ring. And this is what they're doing. They're using this as a promotional tactic to bring traction to the boxing undercard, which Stephanie Piñeiro is going to fight on the undercard. She's a female boxer from Puerto Rico. She's really good. And I know I said I wasn't really into the women's boxing after the shenanigans that happened with Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. Well, anyway, I just don't like the shenanigans that happened with that. So that's why I kind of stopped talking about women's boxing. But I might get into women's boxing again. But as long as there's no shadiness going on, I'll get back into it. But yes, they're using that fight, that main event, Brian Myers, a rapper from Puerto Rico, against another rapper from Cuba, Obi. And since they don't like each other, they're going to settle their differences in the ring. And that's going to be the main event, promoting the undercard with the local talent of Puerto Rico. So that's going to bring more eyeballs, more visibility to the fighters in Puerto Rico coming up, like Alishik Canelo. Manuel Febos, he's going to make his debut. I was supposed to interview Manuel Febos. He's a great prospect who's going to make his debut on the undercard of that fight, which Alishik Canelo is going to be fighting September 12th. It's going to be on pay-per-view in Puerto Rico, Universal Promotions, second greatest boxing promotion of Puerto Rico. Yes, how you doing? Met 5 and Compass. Hi. Met. How you doing? Anyway, so that is going to be a good card where it's going to promote the local talent of Puerto Rico. Yeah, I appreciate the people. There's some haters over here, but I'm not going to give them any light. Bell, come on. Oh, keep it going. Love it. I appreciate you. Subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm going to give all these other people 15 seconds of fame, the ones that are hating on me, but they also bring a lot of algorithms on my channel. So, yeah, if you want to be negative, you could do it, but at the same time, I'm not going to pay attention to you that much. But thanks to the people that really love my content and actually appreciate what I'm doing. I'm talking about boxing. Bell Carmen, I'm going to sub and I've liked it. I appreciate you. God bless you. You're part of the family. You took a chance to subscribe to the real channel that's bringing you unadulterated truth and unbiased information. So yeah, I just finished mentioning what's going on in Puerto Rico as far as Alishik Canelo and also Manuel Febos. Those are the fighters that I'm interested in actually looking out for, and I think the world should check them out as well. Check them out on all major YouTube. You'll see the fights. Alishik Canelo, I interviewed him on one of my videos, and I also interviewed Yanquiel Rivera, who's going to be a future champion. He's with MVP Promotions. He's doing really good. He's going to fight for the championship possibly 2026, and he's going to fight again after his controversial draw to no fault of his, but he's going to fight in December again. So, as far as Subriel Matias, right now the situation with Subriel Matias is not a situation, it's just an evaluation. Look, Subriel Matias, promoter, Fresh Production Boxing from Puerto Rico, won the purse bid. They put $1.9 million to put the fight in Puerto Rico. They beat Matchroom a big established promotional company with Eddie Hearns. They beat them to make the fight in Puerto Rico, and the thing is, it changed the dynamics of what's going to take place now because Turki Alishik and Eddie Hearns were going to work together to make sure that the number one contender and the guy that's fighting Super Matias, Dalton Smith, they were going to ascertain that he makes more money even though he's not the champion, and they were trying to make the fight in England through Eddie Hearns' Matchroom, but that failed because the promotional company of Puerto Rico, Fresh Production Boxing, won the purse bid. So now the fight, it changes the whole dynamics of what takes place. Now Super Matias gets the fight in Puerto Rico because they won the purse bid. He's going to make more money, and I don't think that Turki Alishik is happy with that, and I don't think that Eddie Hearns is happy with that. He's actually embarrassed. Turki Alishik is embarrassed because Fresh Production Boxing, no one saw that company from Puerto Rico outbidding Matchroom, established promotional company that's really big. So now what's going to take place, from what I see and what I heard in the Spanish YouTube content creations that I follow, like Urban Boxeo Urbano with Cesar, and also El Filósofo de Boxeo, this guy Damian, I actually support him, and they were all alluding to that the WBC is actually going to make a move where they actually make the Pitbull Cruz fight versus Dalton Smith instead of Subriel Matias versus Dalton Smith, because Dalton Smith didn't like the purse that he got, the money that he's going to make. Supposedly he didn't like the amount of money that he was making due to the fact that they changed the place where the fight was going to take place due to the purse bid that was won by Fresh Production Boxing from Puerto Rico. So that changed everything economically. So Dalton Smith is not going to get paid as much as Super Matias, and it's possible that he didn't like what was offered to him with the deal being in Puerto Rico and Fresh Production Boxing in Puerto Rico controlling the narrative and the significance of the title holder Super Matias defending his belt in Puerto Rico for the second time, but for the first time with the WBC. And the first time was when he had the IBF, which didn't work out, and he's actually giving Super Matias an opportunity to right the wrong that occurred the first time when he had the IBF belt and he tried to make his title defense in front of his home country, Puerto Rico, in front of his people, which wasn't able to do. So now he gets to actually give Super Matias another opportunity to show the people of Puerto Rico that he's a great champion, and he's going to give him an opportunity to represent in front of his hometown of Puerto Rico, in front of his people, and actually win this time. And I believe that Dalton Smith did not like the amount of money that he's getting, and basically Turki Alishik was conspiring with Eddie Hearns to make sure that if Turki Alishik could get the fight in Saudi Arabia in Riyadh season, he was going to dictate the terms as far as, you know, like how much money he was going to make in Riyadh season in Saudi Arabia. But he gave Eddie Hearns the opportunity to negotiate, thinking that Eddie Hearns was going to beat Fresh Production Boxing and Promotion of Puerto Rico, which didn't happen. They actually won the purse bid. So now, since Turki Alishik is all about control and he wants to make sure that he controls the conditions of the fighters and how much they get paid, and he was going to make sure that Dalton Smith got more money than Super Matias because he's Eddie Hearns' fighter, and he was going to go with the supposedly bigger promotion in Matchroom, which ironically and surprisingly, Fresh Production Boxing shattered that perception that they were the biggest promotional company in the world. Actually, Fresh Production Boxing showed that they are really true players in the game, in the boxing landscape, to be able to beat a company that's very established for a longer period of time than Fresh Production Boxing, which Fresh Production Boxing started in 2016. So Super Matias, it appears that we don't know who Super Matias' opponent is going to be if Dalton Smith pulls out, because Turki Alishik and Eddie Hearns have other plans for him due to the fact that they lost the purse bid to Fresh Production Boxing. So it's like a way for them to retaliate to Super Matias' promoter and Super Matias and take away the fight Dalton Smith and put him with Pitbull Cruz instead. That's the rumor that could happen due to the fact that Fresh Production Boxing won the purse bid, and now they control the conditions of Subriel Matias making more money. Uh, they don't, if I want to get real with you, they basically don't have to worry about Subriel Matias getting robbed in Puerto Rico, like the way Eddie Hearns and Turkey Alishik were trying to do if they was to get the fight put in Saudi Arabia or England. So we already saw what happened in the purse bids, and we believe that there was some fishy stuff, and they were going to try to make sure they accommodate the fighter that's with the bigger promotion that he's in cahoots with, Turkey Alishik and Matchroom. They were going to try to accommodate Dalton Smith and give him more money than Subriel Matias, which is not fair because Subriel Matias is the champion, and I'm glad that Fresh Production proved that they're forced to be reckoned with in the Puerto Rican boxing promotional world by being able to outbid Matchroom and make the fight more fair for Subriel Matias because he is the champion, and ascertain that he doesn't get robbed by the promotion that has more influence or has more leverage or is bigger than Fresh Production Boxing. But we realize that Fresh Production Boxing is actually bigger than what we actually perceive to be. So let's give a round of applause to Puerto Rico promotion, Fresh Production Boxing. Belly Cameron, I'm going to sub, and I've liked. Thank you so much. Bell Cameron, keep going. Love it. I appreciate all the support. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. Subscribe to my channel. So yes, I already mentioned that. So the possibility of Subriel Matias not having an opponent right now is 90% accurate. So I feel like we don't know who he's going to fight if Dalton Smith pulled out of the fight because Turkey Alishik and Eddie Hearns have want to retaliate, and the WBC is actually working on making the Dalton Smith Pitbull Cruz fight. That's a possibility due to the fact that Subriel Matias promotion won the purse bid, and they didn't want to adhere to what Turkey Alishik and Eddie Hearns wanted for how the fight to take place. But everything that Turkey Alishik does, he wants to have control over, and Eddie Hearns also wants to have control over it. And you saw how the boxing politics works. The bigger promoter always gets the accommodations. They buy the judges out, they pay for the judges, and they make sure that the fighter that's in the big company that they represent makes the most money and gets the decision, even though he doesn't win the decision. That's how the politics of boxing works. So I believe that's a good thing they did for Subriel Matias, Fresh Production Boxing, and Durango really he's the CEO of Fresh Production Boxing in Puerto Rico, and he really cares about Subriel Matias, and that's why he made the fight in Puerto Rico. Because if he didn't care about Subriel Matias, he would allow the fight to go somewhere else where they can dictate. But he said, you know what? I'm going to put the money on Subriel Matias because he's my fighter and I have a personal relationship with him. So he put the money up, 1.9 versus Matchroom's 1.7. So yes, we're talking about the Canelo versus Crawford fight. We see a lot of people saying that Canelo's going to win because Canelo's the physically bigger fighter. And we have to understand that when we talk about physically bigger versus immense skills that Crawford has, we have to put a lot of those different intangibles into consideration. Because as far as Canelo and Crawford, they actually walk around the same weight right now. They practically walk around 180, 182. This is what I read somewhere in an article, and I believe that skills win fights, not weight. It's not all based on weight. Sometimes it is weight based on the fact that the fighter has not grown into the weight, comfortably or naturally. So I feel like in Crawford's case, in Terence Crawford's case, he grew into the weight naturally. He's already 36 years old, and I believe Canelo is 34. So I believe that the more fresher fighter between the two is actually Crawford, because Canelo has more wear and tear in his career. He has the most fights, so that doesn't necessarily mean that he has an advantage over Crawford because he fought supposedly on paper better fighters than Crawford. But if you look at Crawford's resume and the way he's won against the elite fighters, Crawford has a better resume than Canelo. I said it. Yes, I said it. Tony also knows boxing said it. Yes, I said it because if you look at Errol Spence, the way Crawford annihilated him, and I don't care what people say about the accident that he had, that he's not the same boxer. No one was really saying that before he fought Crawford. They said it more afterwards, more. And the way I feel like the way Crawford annihilated Errol Spence, who was a top 5 pound for pound fighter at the time when they fought, he was beating everybody. He was dominating everybody that they put in front of him. So I feel like Canelo has never convincingly beat the top tier that he's faced. He hasn't dominated. Like when he fought Golovkin, did he dominate Golovkin? No. The fight could have went either way. And did he fight Golovkin in his prime in the third fight? No. He waited for him to turn into a dinosaur. That's what Canelo did. Strategically waited for him to turn into a dinosaur because Canelo knows that he had trouble with Golovkin's style, with his fighting strategy, the way he fights. And I believe that the first 2 fights were very, very, very close. I believe the first fight, Canelo won by split decision, but I feel like the second fight, Canelo lost, and I believe that he won the third one because Golovkin was a former version of himself. Like he was not a former version of himself. I'm saying he was an older version of himself, and he was no longer the version of himself when he faced Canelo the first time or the second time. So I feel that he did that for a reason because he knows his that style that Golovkin had was a tough style to actually dominate for Canelo. And I believe that Crawford has the better resume as far as the way he defeated an elite fighter that was the top 5 pound for pound, Errol Spence. He annihilated him like he didn't even belong in the ring with him. So I believe that Crawford has the better, more impressive victories over elite competition that he was supposed to have an even match against. The same way Canelo was supposed to have an even match against. He actually did have a close, narrow win and struggled to dominate whenever he stepped up. Even when he fought Lara. Lara technically won the fight because he outboxed him, but they gave the fight to Canelo. And I believe that what's the guy when he moved up in weight? He fought that guy. I forgot the Russian guy's name, but he wasn't the same fighter that he was when he was in his prime. So Canelo always looked for advantages. And then if you look at the last fights that he's had against Berlanga, Munguia, Charlo, Charlo was coming up 2 weight classes, and okay, we could say that he was physically ready to be in that weight, like we're saying Crawford is. But I believe that Canelo, let's say if it was true that he was coming up from 2 weight classes and he's not really ready, prepared physically or mentally to be 2 weight classes above. If that's the case, that he wasn't mentally prepared or physically ready to be at that weight class with Canelo, then why Canelo didn't stop him? Canelo knocked him down, but he didn't stop him, right? So let's just give Charlo the benefit of the doubt. He moved up in weight, and you think he was strong enough to compete in that weight class, but did he look like he belonged in that weight class when he fought Canelo? Or did it look more like he was just trying to collect a check and try to make money because he was fighting Canelo? I feel like he took that fight for the money. He wasn't really trying to win. And I believe that Canelo is going to always beat fighters that have that kind of mentality. But Crawford is in this fight to win it. He's not in there just for money. Of course he wants to get money when he fights Canelo, but he's in there because he really wants to fulfill his legacy and win in this huge fight. And I hope there's no boxing politics, but there have been fighters that moved up in weight in the past and actually won. I could use 2 examples as far as 2 weight classes up, not 3. I can use 2 weight classes up. Sugar Ray Robinson moved up from 147 pounds to the 160-pound division and beat Jake LaMotta. He beat Jake LaMotta and won the world title belt. At that time, I don't think they had a WBA or IBF or WBA or WBC, but He won the belt in 1951. He won the world title belt by moving up 2 weight classes from 147 to 160 to beat Jake LaMotta. And I think it was Jake LaMotta's first loss. He's the first one to defeat Jake LaMotta, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me, anybody, if I said anything that wasn't true. But I think I did my research on that one. I remember what I read, and I think it was Sugar Ray Robinson was the one that beat Jake LaMotta for the first time, and he moved up from 147 to 160 to accomplish that feat and won the world title. That's what they called it then, back then, the world title. They didn't call it IBF. They didn't call it WBC. I guess at that time they didn't have those organizations established yet. And we could also talk about Henry Armstrong, who moved up from featherweight division to the welterweight division on May 31st, 1938, to beat Barney Ross for the world title as well, for the welterweight title. And he won. Henry Armstrong, he was I think he's one of the first fighters to fight in 3 different weight classes simultaneously. And yeah, Henry Armstrong has fought in many different, I think 3 weight classes simultaneously. He held different championships at that time in 1938, around there. And he actually was able to defeat a bigger guy than him in Barney Ross, coming from featherweight all the way to 147 pounds. So do the math. So Canelo is fighting Crawford. Crawford is originally, well, he was in a 147-pound weight class. Then he moved to 154. So then they say he had a close fight with Madrimov. But at the same time, Madrimov has a totally different style than Canelo. I don't think Canelo poses that much technical abilities compared to Madrimov. And I know that you probably think that's ironic because Madrimov, he fought, what's his name? Victor, right? Well, he fought the guy that De La Hoya has right now that's supposed to fight Xander Zayas. And, he beat Madrimov, but he struggled a little bit with him, but he beat Madrimov better than Crawford did. But styles make fights. And I believe that Crawford, from 147, 154, 160, 168. So he's moving 3 weight classes to fight Canelo. So it's more than what Sugar Ray Robinson had to do. They only moved 2 weight classes to win the championship with Jake LaMotta, Sugar Ray Robinson. And Henry Armstrong moved 2 weight classes from featherweight to 147 to beat Barney Ross in 1938, May 31st. So we're talking about 2 weight classes instead of 3. But I do believe that Crawford is physically prepared for that weight, mentally as well. And I believe he has more than enough skills to outbox Canelo and to possibly hurt him or possibly knock him down. I don't know about stop him, but if he's able to do that, I wouldn't be surprised, and I would be surprised. It's kind of like a 50-50 because I feel Canelo is so flat-footed and so one-dimensional compared to Crawford. Because look, if you look at the fight with Berlanga, what has Berlanga ever accomplished? And Canelo wasn't able to knock him out. And Canelo doesn't throw that many combinations anymore because he's not in his prime. But you would think he's still in his prime because the way he's carefully matched with Munguia, limited opposition, and Berlanga, very limited opposition, and Charlo coming up 2 weight classes, and he definitely took the fight for the money, not because he was capable or had the ability to actually beat Canelo. He didn't even try to beat him. It doesn't look like he tried to beat him, and Canelo couldn't stop him. He knocked him down, but he couldn't finish him. So Canelo is no longer in his prime. Canelo, he's so flat-footed, and he fights like he's walking in sand. And William Scope, like, Canelo didn't look so great against William Scope. He did not. So my prediction, I feel like Crawford is not a William Scope, but Crawford is a way better fighter than William Scope, and he's going to take Canelo. He's not going to only move and box. He's not going to run. He's going to move, box, but he's also going to fight, and he's going to set Canelo up. And you can tell by the expression on Crawford's face when they ask him, you're against a hostile crowd in front of pro-Canelo fans, how do you feel? And he said, I've always been the underdog. He said, I've always fought bigger fighters than me. He said this is not the first time this happens. He said this happened many times before. He said I'm ready for this. And then he smiled. He had a smile on his face, like he was gonna enjoy and bask in that victory when he beats Canelo. He was gonna dominate him, and I feel like that's how he truly feels, that he's gonna dominate Canelo. And I believe that, you know, everybody always talks about his last performance with Madrimov, and they talk about, oh, like, you know, if you struggled at 154 with Madrimov, Israeli Madrimov, how are you gonna beat Canelo? But then he says, that's the past. Look at Canelo's last fight, when nobody brings that up. He didn't look good against William Scope. Why people don't only talk about my last performance? Talk about Canelo's last performance. Canelo didn't look good at all. He hardly landed anything. And he hardly throws combinations. He hardly throws punches. It was the lowest boxing combination in a fight, I think. That fight with Canelo and Scope. So, yes, and then Canelo is banking on the fact that he sparred with Jerome Boots Ennis, and Jerome Boots Ennis, they say that Canelo, you know, was able to get inside, and if you actually watch the whole sparring session, that you will see that Canelo actually, you know, got his way with Jerome Boots Ennis, and he dominated Jerome Boots Ennis. But then when you check out Dante's boxing, he says that it appears that that Canelo was getting out slicked and out hustled by Jerome Boots Ennis. He was insinuating that. I'm just paraphrasing. So Dante's boxing, he's biased. You know, he's gonna say whatever's convenient for him based on race. But with me, it's not about race. It's about the truth, the honest, unadulterated truth. And I feel like some boxing content creators, they make it a racial thing. It's not always a racial thing, but sometimes it is. So you gotta keep it real. But I just feel that he makes everything about race. Dante's boxing. I don't agree with everything he says, and I believe he's biased too. He's very biased. But he makes some good points too. I'm not going to say that I'm totally against everything that he says, but I'm 50-50 with him, with Dante's boxing. This is Tony, also knows boxing. You're tuning into my channel. I'm trying to get Manuel Febus on my show. He said yes, that he would come on my show, but he's really busy. He's going to fight September 12th, the day before Canelo versus Crawford. So check out Manuel Febus. He's going to make his debut on September 12th in Puerto Rico, pay-per-view. And Abisael Cotto, who is 8-0 with 7 KOs. I interviewed Abisael Cotto in previous videos. You want to check that out. He's going to fight also on September 12th. He's going to be the future champion at the 135-pound division. Mark my words on that. Abisael Cotto and Yanquier Rivera is going to be the champion in 2026. And he's going to fight again in December. So check him out too. They're great, great fighters that I interviewed, and you're going to see greatness when you watch them on September 12th in Puerto Rico on pay-per-view. Tiquetera.com. Check them out. Support them. And then the main fight, September 13th, Canelo versus Crawford. I got Crawford winning by unanimous decision or possibly by stoppage, but I would say that Crawford's going to dominate him in a way where Canelo's not going to be able to deal with his style, because Canelo is a brawler, but he's not good with boxers that are technically savvy and technical with the abilities that Crawford has. If he had trouble with William Scope, Arislande Lara, Mayweather, Canelo's going to have trouble with Crawford. Crawford's a different breed, and I think Crawford's still the fresher fighter of the two, with less damage, with less wear and tear on his body. And I believe he's prepared. You've seen his physique. But I think mentally and skillfully, with the physique all together, is going to make for a deadly combination for Canelo. A boxer that knows how to use boxing ability, agility, movement, and set you up and time you with the jab is poison for Canelo. Poison. And they walk around at the same weight. I think that Canelo's not he's not a big middleweight. He's not a big super middleweight. He's not. And Crawford is actually grown into the weight, and I believe they're the same size as far as height. And I believe that Crawford is already matured into the weight, and he's not going to have trouble with Canelo's. Canelo's not going to be a big deal for him. I think it's going to be the other way around. I think Crawford's going to be a big deal, and his presence is going to be felt on the day of the fight night. And I'm rooting for Crawford. I don't like Canelo. I'm telling you the truth. I don't like Canelo because in the 1990s, if he would have fought when Felix Trinidad, Ike Corte, Oscar De La Hoya, and Pernell Whitaker were in their prime, and at that time, he would be an ordinary, regular, smegular fighter, Canelo, if he was to fight in that era. I think it's just all promotion and streams, and that's the reason why. So subscribe to that channel. Tony also knows boxing. You're tuning into my channel. Subscribe. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm getting close to 1,000 subscribers, and I thank everybody that supported my channel. And I'm going to interview Manuel Febos next, hopefully. I'm trying to get everybody on my channel. And check out those 2 interviews with Jaquier Rivera. I got 2 interviews with him, and I got 1 interview with Abisael Cotto. Check out their fights with Abisael Cotto, who fights September 12th. Go to tiquetera.com to get your tickets for Friday pay-per-view. He's actually going to fight on September 12th, the night before the Canelo Alvarez versus Bud Crawford fight, which is September 13th, the Bud Crawford and Canelo fight. So check out the fight with Abisael Cotto versus, he's going to fight a Mexican guy. I forgot to say that. He finally has an opponent, and the opponent is, I think he's 18 wins, 13 losses. No. I got that record wrong. 18 wins, 3 losses, and 14 KOs. 18 wins, 3 losses, 14 KOs. He's from Mexico. He's going to Puerto Rico to fight Abisael Cotto, the hometown fighter, 8-0 with 7 KOs. And Abisael Cotto is a problem. He's the truth. You got to check him out. There's videos on YouTube. Check him out. He's a problem. He's going to take over the 135 weight class. Trust me when I say that. So yeah, subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. I got Crawford winning by unanimous decision and with a possible knockdown of Canelo. And if he knocks out Canelo, even better. Because I feel like Canelo is always trying to avoid David Benavidez and trying to make the easiest fights possible. And I think he thinks or believes wholeheartedly that his weight is going to make a difference with Crawford. He's actually doing that because he thinks that he has a weight advantage, but he don't realize what Crawford brings to the table, and Crawford's going to surprise a lot of people. A lot of people that don't think that Crawford can win, he's surprising them. He's going to surprise all of them. I like Crawford. I love Bud Crawford, actually. I would love to interview him. I would like to give him an opportunity to be in my show. He seems like one of the most humble champions out there. One of the most humble. But I think Jerome Ennis didn't help Canelo. He just gave Canelo the false illusion of confidence because he thinks that Jerome Ennis has the same style as Crawford. And that he thinks he has an advantage because he trained with him and he possibly dominated him in the sparring. But that doesn't mean that he's going to beat him in a real fight with Jerome Ennis, or it could possibly mean that too. It depends. But it doesn't mean that he's going to beat Crawford just because he looked really good in sparring with Jerome Ennis. That doesn't mean that. But it probably gives him a false sense of confidence that could backfire on him because when they asked Canelo, do you think the weight is going to play a factor in the fight with you and Crawford? He said, I believe so. I believe so. He said something like that. You know how he talks. So he is going to be sadly mistaken. He's in for a rude awakening. Canelo he's in for a rude awakening, and he's going to get dominated by Crawford. Trust me when I say that. I know my boxing. Tony also knows boxing, and if it doesn't happen, then the weight was a factor. But I believe Crawford has more than enough skills to defeat Canelo. Subscribe to that channel. Tony also knows boxing. Subscribe to that channel. Don't be afraid to subscribe to the channel. The channel's doing good, and all thanks to everybody that's tuning in, that's not afraid to hear the real truth and get real boxing content. I believe that the channel, I'm going to thank everybody, all of you. Once I reach 1,000, I'm going to start doing things for my fans, and I really appreciate everybody subscribing to the channel, and I'm possibly going to go to Jaquier Rivera's next boxing event if he fights in Orlando, and I'm actually going to go up close and personal because he's possibly going to give me some access to go over there and interview the fighters up close and personal and get behind the scenes footage as well. So check out Tony also knows boxing. The information I gave you about Super Matias, I'm able to give it to you because I know enough Spanish to I know a lot of Spanish because that's the first language that I learned, and I was able to get that information from the Spanish podcasters that are doing their thing, like Boxeo Urbano and El Filósofo de Boxeo, who support me and I support them. But all these no sabo Puerto Ricans that don't know how to speak Spanish, they can't give you that news. They can't even interview their favorite boxers who are Puerto Rican that speak only Spanish because they only know how to speak English. They can't dominate Spanish. They just know how to say huepa. Huepa is not enough Spanish. Like huepa is just a little phrase. But that's not going to give you the Puerto Rican card to claim that you're a real Boricua. You got to do more research, brother. You got to actually speak more Spanish. Be more fluent in Spanish. But no knock to them. That's how they want to be. If they don't want to speak Spanish, that's on them. But if you want to interview your favorite fighter from Puerto Rico that speaks only Spanish, how are you going to do it if you don't know how to speak Spanish? You don't know how to dominate the language. You only know how to speak English. You're limited. Anyway, Tony also knows boxing. Subscribe to that channel and check out the fight. I'll be posting more videos on the day of the fight. I'll be posting videos and be sharing my thoughts on the fights. And yes, subscribe to that channel. Tony also knows boxing. Peace. Don't be afraid to tune in and subscribe.